The Nikon delayed the ZF to see what Sony was going to bring to the table with their new A7C series of cameras. Let's talk about that in today's video. About a week or so before Sony launched their new cameras, I remember seeing a post on Sony Alpha Rumors that Nikon would be delaying the ZF because of Sony's release. Seems as though Nikon wanted to wait and see what Sony was bringing out before they released the ZF. No one really talked about this in any videos. I said no one mentioned anything about this, but it got me thinking, and I waited to talk about this thing because we know that the specifications seem kind of similar, not as far as sensor, but so far as the specifications, they're going to be different. Alpha 7 IV is what the sensor is supposed to be in the A7C series of camera. Well, the A7C II. The A7CR was going to have the A7R5 sensor. And now that we have the information, those are in fact true, but there are some differences. I'm not going to talk about the A7CR because that's a whole other level of camera, but the ZF would be closely matched with the A7C II. There are some things that Sony has done that has been wondering why. And it's not a big thing, but if you've owned a Sony camera, some of the things that those of us who own ones kind of get a bit annoyed about is, wow, there's some new technologies coming to these cameras that are costing less than the ones that you purchased that you would have expected to be available in this camera, but you don't have it. Now they've turned around and they've dropped better sensors, or I shouldn't say better sensors. It's basically the same sensor. The A7C II is using the A7 IV sensor, and the A7R5 sensor is going to be in the A7CR. So the Nikon Zf should have a brand new sensor, but it's still rumored at this point. But based on the specification of the new A7 II, that's a camera that it seems to play pretty nice with as far as, competition. Because it's going to be in the same price range, so to speak. So if you're looking at things from a price perspective, you have to look at what it brings, what's the competitors' equipment going to bring out, and where do you stand when it comes to that. So with that in mind, let's look at some of the specs of the new camera and compare them to what we know of the Nikon ZF. What Sony has done with the A7C II is stuck the A7 IV system inside the body. And when I say system, that pretty much means just about everything. It's got the sensor, it's got the processor, but it also has some updates that are slightly different. And these updates are things that are welcomed updates, such as 7 stops of IBIS. That's freaking awesome. Now, the only camera in Sony's lineup that had something around that range was the A7R5 with 8 stops. So that tells me Sony's got some good tech that they're spilling down to their other cameras. Let's continue. On the photo side, it's basically the same as the A7 IV, but what they've done is to add some additional features, which are the AI features, subject recognition, and posing estimation. These are things that were introduced on the A7R5. Now, it was a big thing on the A7R5. We kind of got cranky about it when we heard about it on the ZV-E1. Now here it is, coming down the A7C range of cameras. This is kind of interesting, but nonetheless, it's a very good feature to have, and I think a lot of people will love having this for their camera. I know I like it in my camera. If it makes the focusing better and it can track better, come on, Nikon, you got to get on the ball on this one. Add it to our cameras. I'll say this, the A7C is not a big camera at all. It's small, it's tiny. So much so that there is this grip that they sell with the camera. Well, they're going to offer it for free with A7R, but you have to buy it on the A7C. Basically, some people complain that mirrorless cameras are too small. Your picture kind of hang off the bottom when you hold them. So doing it with this camera, providing a grip, is going to make things better. And I shouldn't say providing one, but offering one, because it's not free on the A7C, you get it on A7R. So continuing with the video specs, autofocusing is something that Sony has always been working on and improving. It seems they've improved this on the A7C. They've taken pretty much some of the technology from the A7R5 and moved it over to this camera, which is really a good thing. Now, those of us with the Z8 have benefited from having technology from the Z9. We're hoping to see this or better than that in future cameras. However, based upon what it said on Nikon Rumors, it's supposed to be better than the Z6. You know, I say this, Nikon, if you can take the same focusing system outside of the Z8, put it in there, I think that's what you need to do. I've said this before in another video. When it comes to camera, focusing, getting everything good with the autofocus, that's basically the biggest thing you need to fix. All your cameras from today forward should have very similar focusing system. How the camera sees the world, this is what the biggest area that you need to work on. And Sony's proven it even more. While it's annoying, you know, old customers, because you spend $7,000 or $6,500 or whatever that is for the A1, and then you have the A7R5, which costs $2,500 less on that camera, a better system. Then you have the ZV-E1 that has improved system over the A7R5. Now you're coming out with A7C with basically A7R5 improvement. So that's, yeah, that's kind of crazy, but it's useful things that people want in their camera. So people are going to still buy it, you know, for less money. It's a tiny camera, you know, in the grand scheme of things, but let's be honest. A lot of younger people are shooting videos these days. And while they're graduating from phones and going into APS-C and some into full frame, you know, all these features that are in here can benefit those of us who say, hey, we want to shoot full frame. And video is a big thing. As much as people don't want to say it is a big thing. Those of us who shoot photographs may not think so, but yeah, video is taking off. So they're utilizing the AI processing unit for posing estimations and so on from the A7R5. Yeah, I will even look at this right now. Let me just, the more I look at this thing, I'm like, it's the A7R5. A lot of the tech in the A7R5 are in these two cameras. Nikon, you're gonna have some big shoes to fill, because if you did not implement something better than the Z8 system, Z9 system in this camera, you may have a hard time. I know people will buy it if you're just Nikon only fanboys and for the price point of what it can do. Let me tell you this, if this new focusing system that is mentioned that nobody really put any information about, I've not seen it in the rumors, if it's not as good as this Sony AI stuff, you know, you're gonna have some problems in the future. You made a nice comeback with the Z8, but I'm telling you, you need to have some AI features just like this new Sony cameras that are coming out. The A7R5 showed like next level stuff, and they're just trickling on the technology into all their different cameras. I don't know, Zf, what are you coming with? You know, I'm hoping this new feature that they mentioned would be something like the AI focus, AI, what is it called? Pose estimation, and also that auto framing feature that Sony has introduced on the ZV-E1. That's an awesome feature. In a sense, you can block off a portion of the screen, hit it, get yourself in focus inside there, and no matter where you go, the camera tracks you. This is something I remember that Apple had brought on their iPads and iPhones for messaging. So if you are messaging with someone and someone else comes to the frame, the camera reframes, so you can have people in there. If you're single by yourself and you're walking around the screen, it will track you inside that area. No box required, which is kind of cool, Apple. If Nikon can do something like that, yeah, the framing, you know, for those of us in the background, it's okay for us to see as you're filming. But for those who are, you know, recording, if it just works without the boxes, that'll be cool too. But I know when it comes to expensive cameras, people want to see the boxes so they can tell if everything's working. So that's something we're going to have to look into. We'll see what's going to happen. So yeah, AI-based auto framing for movies. Pretty much the same thing I just talked about. So in essence, what I thought it was going to be and what I'm seeing on the site here, it's basically the same thing. Sony's taking their tech from, well, the newest tech and putting it into newer and newer cameras. So Nikon Zf, ooh, you're gonna have some big shoes to fill. So as far as video codec goes, look like it's going to be the same, 4K 60, both are going to be cropped. So the similar specifications there. One thing I did notice on the camera also is that it will not have a joystick on the back, so that's going to be very similar to the ZF. Now I'm thinking about some of these things. I think, you know, they're quite similar in their design and so on. Even though those of us who are saying it's a retro style camera, and we know that retro style camera didn't have the joystick, a lot of people kind of use the joystick on cameras. You know, Nikon and Sony usually have that to move an autofocus points around. But I don't think it's a big deal, especially now with AI framing. So, well, especially for video. On the photo side, if they repurpose the wheel or the directional pad for that, that's not a big thing. You can work with that. So overall, they're looking pretty much the same. And, you know, Sony's killing it. Let's call it simple. Sony's killing it. The ZF, I think it'll have a bigger screen, a rear screen. You know, we can always count on Nikon to do that. Usually their screen is maybe not as high quality as Sony. We still don't know the actual specs on the Nikon side just yet, but we'll see what it is. As far as how much space you have back there, since it's bigger than the ZFC, I'm going to guess it's going to be 3.2 inches as well for viewable area. So that should be a good thing as well. So yeah, we have more photo information on the ZF than we have video specifications. They don't go into depth, but Nikon usually doesn't go into depth on their sites. But we'll see, you know, what they do when it comes out. We are pretty much at the end of August right now, so we have to wait till September comes around to see what date it's going to get launched. But yeah, you know, I think it will. I think the ZF is going to appeal to both newcomers and old users alike. Because some people like the retro style. It's going to be definitely bigger than the Sony A7C cameras. And while Sony has some additional features inside of it, sometimes for some people it really comes down to whether or not you're comfortable holding the camera. I had the Sony for a while, the A7R5. I didn't like how it felt when I hold it for a long period of time shooting. It got uncomfortable, but I kind of worked around that by just using the screen instead of putting it up to my face. When I see the videos of people utilizing this camera and put it up to their face, I'm like, oh my God, this thing looks like a freaking toy. And as mentioned earlier, yeah, you'll need that little grip on the bottom to help out. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. This seems interesting now. Can Nikon compete with Sony with the ZF? Technology-wise, and a few things they do, unless we have some new feature coming out that we've never heard of before from Nikon. I think on the video side, the AI stuff that Sony is bringing out is going to be really awesome. But again, for me, the smaller size is my challenge with going along with one of those cameras. But for those who are looking for the Nikon and like the retro style, it may appeal to them. Some of those things may not be a big deal. Let's be honest, there's a market for just about anything that people puts out there. No one runs to one camera and says, oh, they have everything is perfect on that one, I'm gonna get it. Or everything is perfect on this one, I'm gonna get it. That's not how it usually works. So while Nikon will sell their camera and Sony will sell their cameras, it comes down to preferences and what you like. Curious to hear from you guys, what you think. Put it in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.